Have you ever stopped to think about the true meaning of the day you were born? Far beyond a simple date on the calendar, your birthday can carry deep clues about your personality, your challenges, and even your life purpose. And this is not a new idea. The renowned Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung has dedicated much of his career to exploring how archetypes and symbols shape who we are, including those linked to our birth. Jung believed that nothing in our life is by chance. Every detail has a symbolism that influences our unconscious, our choices, and ultimately our destiny. Your day of birth, for example, can reveal invisible patterns that affect your relationships, your work, your way of loving and dealing with the world. What if I told you that by understanding what's behind that day, you could unlock parts of yourself that you didn't even know existed? That you could make decisions more aligned with your true essence, avoid repetitive cycles, and finally understand why certain things always seem to happen to you? If you are interested in self-knowledge, spirituality, depth psychology, or are just looking for answers, this video was made for you. Take advantage and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this. Here, each video is one more step in the journey of discovering who you really are. And now, get ready, because the importance of your birthday goes far beyond what you imagine. There is a deeper reason why you were born exactly on the day you were born. It is not a matter of coincidence, nor of luck or chance. According to Carl Jung, our birth happens in a kind of cosmic synchrony, a silent dance between time and the collective unconscious. For him, the universe has a symbolic language, and every element of our lives, including the day we came into the world, carries an archetypal meaning that influences who we are. When you're born, you're not just physically entering this world. You are, in a sense, tuning into a specific frequency, an energy that will shape the way you think, feel, and act. Jung called these archetypes universal psychic structures that inhabit the collective unconscious. They are like invisible molds that influence our individual stories. The day of your birth, then, acts as a kind of energetic signature. It determines which archetype was most active at that moment, and this is reflected in deep aspects of your personality. People born in the first days of a month, for example, usually carry an energy of beginning, of impulse, of pioneering. Those born in the middle of the month may have a greater inclination to stability, balance, mediation. Those born at the end tend to feel an urgency for closure, transformation, and evolution. Of course, this should not be interpreted as a rigid rule, but as a symbolic map that helps you understand why you act in a certain way or are attracted to certain paths. Jung reminds us that self-knowledge begins when we look inward and, at the same time, at the signs that the universe gives us. And your day of birth is one of those signs. It can explain why you've always had an easy time leading, or why you feel more comfortable behind the scenes. It can reveal why you have a sharp intuition, or why you've always felt different even though you don't know exactly why. And the most fascinating thing is that, when you become aware of this, you begin to rescue parts of yourself that were dormant. He begins to understand patterns that once seemed mere repetitions of fate. Finally, he begins to transform his life with more conscious choices, aligned with his essence. Imagine, for example, that you were born on a day with strong creative energy. This does not mean that you need to be an artist or writer, but that your soul expresses itself better when it has the freedom to create, innovate, transform what is common into something unique. If you ignore this inner calling, you may feel an emptiness, a silent anguish. But by recognizing this impulse and respecting it, everything begins to flow more lightly. The answers appear, the paths open up, and you feel, for the first time in a long time, that you are exactly where you should be. Too often, we spend years trying to fit into models that have nothing to do with us. We work in jobs that don't fulfill us, we maintain relationships that don't resonate with our truth, we embrace ideas that don't reflect our essence. All this because we don't know who we really are. And perhaps the first step towards this discovery lies precisely in the most obvious, but often ignored, date of our existence. So when you look at your birthday through the lens of depth psychology, you're not just studying a date. You are accessing a key that can open doors to a new way of living. And the more you dive into this understanding, the more sense everything starts to make. But what exactly does your day say about you? what energies are associated with each moment of the month, and how to identify, more clearly, which archetype may be influencing your trajectory. That's what we're going to explore next. Each day of the month carries a unique vibration, as if it were a specific musical note within a larger symphony. And just as each note has its function in a melody, the day you were born brings with it a frequency that resonates with certain qualities, challenges, and potentials. This is not a new idea, much less too mystical to be taken seriously. Carl Jung understood that human beings are deeply connected with symbolic patterns, and that time, as well as dreams, myths, and archetypes, is loaded with meaning. When you are born on a certain day, you unconsciously align yourself with certain symbols and inner forces. Let's imagine that you were born on the first day. This day vibrates with the energy of beginnings, of leadership, of the courage to walk paths where no one has trodden. People with this mark usually have a natural tendency to autonomy, but they may also face challenges linked to ego, impatience, or the fear of depending on others. On the other hand, those born on days like 11 or 22 may be connected to archetypes of master, healer, or builder of structures larger than themselves, but with that also comes the internal pressure to do something great, to be useful to the collective. There are also those who were born on intermediate dates, such as the 15th, which usually carries a conciliatory vibration. They are people who act as bridges between extremes, who easily feel what the other feels and, therefore, often neglect their own will. The shadow of this is the tendency to submission or the difficulty of imposing limits. Jung would say that understanding this movement is not just understanding a defect, but integrating this energy, giving it a conscious place, so that it does not rule your life without you realizing it. This symbolic look at your birthday is not intended to limit or label you. On the contrary, it serves as a mirror that shows where your deepest strengths are, but also where you may be acting on automatic, repeating patterns inherited from the collective unconscious. Because that's what often happens. We act without realizing that certain choices were made out of fear, external expectations, or simply because we never stop to question. When you reconnect with the symbol of your birth, something changes. You stop seeing life as a random sequence of events and start seeing meaning in the details. You understand why certain relationships were so intense, why some opportunities just didn't work out, and why, at certain times, you felt like you were swimming against the current. Jung believed that the further we move away from our essence, the more the unconscious finds ways to alert us, whether through dreams, conflicts, illnesses, or even persistent feelings of emptiness. On the other hand, when you align yourself with the symbology of your birth, you begin to live in coherence with who you really are. And that coherence is what brings peace, direction, and strength. You stop trying to fit in and start building a life that reflects your inner truth. Doubts decrease, choices become clearer, and the journey becomes lighter, even with the inevitable challenges. But how to access this knowledge in a practical way? How to identify, within your birthday, the hidden potentials and challenges that you came to transform? And how does all of this relate to your life purpose, to what Jung would call individuation, the process of becoming who you were born to be? This is exactly what we are going to delve into below. For Jung, the highest goal in life is not perfection, but individuation, an ongoing and profound process of becoming who one is in essence. And it is here that the symbolism of his birthday takes on an even more revealing dimension. It is not enough to just identify the archetypes and patterns that are present at the time you arrived in the world. The real value lies in understanding how these forces shape your journey and, more importantly, how you can consciously work with them to evolve. Each day carries a symbolic mission. It may be that your soul has chosen a path of healing, leadership, creation, deconstruction, or support. The key is to realize that your birth was a purposeful starting point. When you are born on a certain day, you are also born with an internal task, something that needs to be developed, polished, and lived. This task can come disguised as talent, but it can also come as a challenge. And it is precisely by facing these challenges that you begin to get closer to your true self. Jung said that what we do not face in the conscious reappears as destiny. That is, the aspects you ignore about yourself, your fears, insecurities, repetitive patterns, keep appearing in the form of external situations. Sometimes in difficult relationships, other times in financial blockages, professional frustrations, or existential crises. But all of this can be understood, re-signified, and transformed when you understand the symbol behind your date of birth. For example, if the day you were born carries an energy linked to the number 7, this may indicate a natural inclination to introspection, to study, to spiritual searching. People with this vibration often feel out of place in very noisy or shallow environments. They need silence, time to reflect, connection with something bigger. When they ignore this need and try to fit into routines that don't respect their nature, the result is often anxiety, disconnection, or a persistent sense of not belonging. Recognizing this changes everything. It allows for more authentic choices, creates internal and external spaces of welcome, and favors a life more aligned with the soul. Those who were born under the influence of the number 3, for example, may have a mission related to communication, expression, and creative joy. This person is often seen as expansive, charismatic, but often carries a deep insecurity about being taken seriously. By understanding this duality, they can learn to value their lightness without having to hide or mold themselves to please others. And this is individuation in practice, assuming all parts of oneself, even those that have been denied, in order to live with more truth. The most beautiful thing about all of this is that no matter what point in life you are in right now, it is always possible to start this process of returning to yourself. Jung never spoke of ready-made formulas, but of personal paths. Your birthday doesn't dictate who you are, but it does reveal precious clues about who you can become, if you're willing to look boldly within. And this courage is what differentiates those who only survive from those who actually live. It is as if, by understanding what your birth symbolizes, you gain a map. A map not to follow blindly, but to explore with awareness. And the more you know this map, the more you realize that it speaks to your deepest feelings, to your old dreams, to what you have always known, but never been able to explain. Now that we understand how the date of your birth can reveal internal patterns and point out directions in your individuation process, it's time to go further. Let's explore how to apply this knowledge in your daily life, so that it doesn't just stay in the field of ideas, but is transformed into action, choice, and concrete transformation. Because knowing who you are only makes sense if it reflects on the way you live. Knowing who you are in essence is a powerful achievement, but it is useless if this knowledge does not translate into practical choices, into conscious attitudes in everyday life. Jung's proposal has always been to bring to light what is hidden, not only for contemplation, but for real transformation. And now that you understand the symbolism of your birthday and how it can reveal your mission, it's time to take it a step further. Integrate this knowledge into your daily life. Integrating means acting on what you've discovered. It is to bring to the external world the truths that have emerged in your internal world. If your birth carries the vibration of communication, for example, there is no point in knowing this if you live silently, swallowing words, repressing ideas. It is necessary to exercise expression, to find channels that allow this energy to flow, whether speaking, writing, teaching, creating. The same goes for those who carry archetypes linked to healing or care. These people need to get involved with activities that bring well-being to others, or that promote balance, even if in subtle ways. This daily practice begins with observation. Pay attention to the moments when you feel alive, connected, whole. Also notice the moments when you seem to be disconnected from yourself, as if you are living in automatic mode. Usually, in these moments of disconnection, we are going against our own essential energy. And that's where excessive fatigue, discouragement, conflicts that seem to have no end are born. The body feels, the mind is confused, and the soul falls asleep. Jung taught that everything that is not integrated becomes a shadow, and the shadow, when ignored, gains strength. Therefore, recognizing your talents, your tendencies, your pains and impulses should not be an exercise of vanity, but of responsibility. Knowing that you have a heightened sensitivity, for example, means accepting that as part of who you are, and creating an environment where that sensitivity can flourish rather than be stifled. In the same way, recognizing a tendency to mental rigidity or excessive control is an opportunity to cultivate flexibility, detachment, lightness. Another way to apply the symbolism of your birth in everyday life is to use this as a criterion for choice. When making a decision, whether it's changing careers, starting a relationship, starting a project, or even saying no to something, ask yourself, does this choice align with what I've discovered about myself? Or am I doing it to meet external expectations, out of fear, or out of habit? This simple filter can avoid many detours and, at the same time, open doors to more authentic and transformative experiences. It is also possible to consciously work with the challenges associated with your birthday. If you were born on a day that carries an energy very focused on action, leadership, and impulse, perhaps your learning is to cultivate listening, patience, and collaboration. If your vibration is more contemplative, the challenge may be not to isolate yourself too much, to allow yourself to live the world with more intensity. No energy is better or worse. What exists is the constant invitation to balance and evolution. Small rituals also help maintain this alignment. You can, for example, set aside a moment of the day to reconnect with your personal symbols. You can write, meditate, walk in silence, or simply do something that nourishes your essence. This creates an internal space of presence, where decisions are made with more awareness and less drive. The most beautiful thing about this process is that it is unique to each person. There is no right path or universal formula. What exists is a silent call coming from within, asking you to live with more truth, with more presence, and with more meaning. And if you've heard this call this far, you may be ready for something even deeper. Because now that you've learned to recognize and apply the meaning of your birthday, we can get into the most transformative part of this journey, how to use it as a compass for your life purpose. Getting this far means that you have already traveled a path of deep recognition. You understood the symbolism of your birthday, understood how it influences your personality, your challenges and potentials, and began to see ways to apply this knowledge in your practical life. Now, the time has come to unite all of this into something even bigger, the discovery of your purpose. For Jung, purpose is not a specific goal, such as a position or a material achievement. It is a state of being. It is what is born from the integration between what you carry inside and what the world asks of you. Purpose is the most authentic expression of your soul in action. It is the moment when you live what you were born to live, with coherence, truth, and fullness. Your day of birth can be a powerful compass in this process. It indicates the central themes that your soul came to develop, transform, and offer to the world. It is not a fixed destination, but a direction. It is as if the universe had left subtle signs in its trajectory, and one of the first and most important was exactly there, on the date you arrived in the world. People born in days with leadership energy, for example, usually have a purpose linked to the transformation of systems, the opening of paths for others, innovation. Those with a vibration more focused on care, sensitivity, or art may have the purpose of healing, inspiration, or listening. The most interesting thing is that, often, the greatest talents are also the most challenging points. You may have been born with a powerful voice, but you spent your childhood afraid to express yourself. He may have a keen intuition, but he has learned to doubt it. These contrasts are no coincidence, they are part of the path. Jung said that what we seek in the world is, in fact, within us, waiting to be remembered. Purpose, then, is not something that is invented. It's something that unfolds layer by layer, as you connect with your center. And its center is directly linked to the symbolism of its birth. To use this as a compass, start by looking at the recurring patterns in your life. What themes always come up? What kind of people do you attract? What situations seem to repeat themselves, as if they were trying to teach you something you haven't understood yet? These clues show you where your soul is trying to lead you. Then ask yourself, what gifts do you have that, when used, make you feel full, useful, alive? Often, purpose is revealed in this encounter between pain and talent, between challenge and vocation. Another essential point is to remember that purpose is not something fixed or immutable. It can unfold in phases, evolve with you. The important thing is to stay true to what makes sense to your soul, even if it challenges social standards or external expectations. When you walk toward your purpose, even if slowly, you feel a kind of inner relief. It's as if, finally, everything is starting to make sense. And this does not mean living without fear or uncertainty. It just means that even in the face of obstacles, there is a clear direction, and that direction comes from within. Your birthday, in this context, acts as a constant reminder of who you are and what you came here to do. He points out, with subtlety, the path that most resonates with his essence. Now that you understand how this simple and, at the same time, symbolic date can guide you towards a more aligned, more conscious, and truer life, we are ready to conclude this journey. In the next and last excerpt, we will gather all the points explored so far and reflect on how to continue walking this path with courage, clarity, and presence. Because true transformation begins when knowledge becomes choice, and choice becomes life. Throughout this journey, we have immersed ourselves together in one of the most revealing discoveries one can make: the understanding of one's own birth as a living symbol, loaded with meaning and potential. We explored Carl Jung's deep insight into the collective unconscious, archetypes, and the process of individuation, and realized that the day you were born is much more than a piece of data in a document. It's a portal, a starting point that holds clues about who you are, why you are here, and where your soul wants to go. Understanding the symbolism of your birthday does not mean looking for absolute answers or fixed labels. It means making room to listen to what is beyond the surface, to recognize internal patterns, forgotten gifts, and even unresolved pains that are part of your story. It's about looking at life itself with new eyes, eyes that see meaning even in the most difficult situations. Jung said that we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making darkness conscious. And that's what we've done here. We illuminate the shadows, look inward, and find signs left from the beginning. More important than knowing what your day of birth represents is what you do with that knowledge. How do you choose to live from now on with more presence, more coherence, and more truth? The self-awareness that is born from this understanding is liberating, but it also demands responsibility. Once you understand your standards, you can no longer pretend they don't exist. You need to decide, every day, if you are going to keep repeating it or if you are going to transform. The true purpose of life, according to Jung, is to become who you are. Not who the world expects you to be. Not the version that pleases everyone, but the version that resonates with your soul. Your day of birth is one of the first pieces of this puzzle. It does not dictate your trajectory, but points out directions, reveals potentialities, and offers the chance to reconnect with your essence. And perhaps the most powerful thing about all of this is realizing that you don't have to change who you are. What you need, in fact, is to remember. Remember who you have always been behind the masks, the pains, the expectations, and the fears. Remembering the child you were, the sparkle in your eyes you once had, the dreams that seemed too big, and now, who knows, they make perfect sense. Real transformation begins when you honor your history and decide to walk with awareness. When you stop waiting for an external signal and start listening to the internal signals. His birth was the first of them. And now that you understand this, you can walk with more clarity, authenticity, and courage. If this content made sense to you, share it. It may be that someone you love also needs to remember who they are. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Here, every reflection is an invitation to awaken, because you deserve to live with purpose, and the world needs people who have the courage to be who they were born to be.